Hey guys, welcome to Hero Chat, and I'm Hero, and today we're going to talk with Vlad. Say hello, Vlad.
Cowabunga.
Hell yeah. Today we're going to play some Super Nintendo. So we've all got our collections here. We were going to play Mario Kart, but we're actually going to play Turtles in Time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You got your PAL region, same as me, because I'm an Australian. So most of the people probably watch this probably from the US, where they had a different looking Super Nintendo, very boxy looking one. But we both share that same as the Japanese Super Famicom style console, which I think looks. I like it better, but it's probably more nostalgic to me.
This one has the federal German flag in here because it was imported from Germany.
Oh wow!
And at the time, it was still during the era of divided Germany, I guess. I mean, they reunited before the console was launched, but I guess it was.
It was the Super Nintendo that brought them together, wasn't it?
Of course. And it was Doom on the Super Nintendo. The red card that.
Oh yep.
No, Wolfenstein. I think that's the one that's banned in Germany.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it would be because it's got Hitler in it. Now, Vlad, just tell us briefly about what you do in the Bitcoin space.
Right now, I'm doing the Bitcoin Takeover podcast and have been doing it for 4 years now. And I'm at season 13, recording episodes with interesting people in the space and trying to present ideas and projects that are not featured anywhere else, or at least from a different angle. And I'm also working right now on the third annual Bitcoin Takeover magazine. This is the second one from last year. Only 120 of these were printed, and there were lots of different editions from it. In total, I think more than 1,500 of them were shipped.
Wow.
I got a little crazy and spent too much money on them. And this is a guide to my podcast.
Oh, that's sick,
all
man.
The guests on my show are here, and I wrote one page about every episode. And you can also find this one on btctkvr.com. I guess that's the better, shorter version of the domain that you can visit. And this is also open source. So, you can also see here Brief Dance. Her name is Brianna, and she has an ad for panties.
Nice.
And what else?
I saw that she has my shirt too. Sorry.
Oh yeah, you should have her dance and do that song about Michael Saylor being a bull.
That's awesome, man. You're obviously doing heaps of stuff in this space, which is amazing. But yes, if everyone go check out all that stuff. I'll put a link in the description of your website and whatnot.
I feel like sometimes a lot of my work flies under the radar because I don't spend too much time promoting what I do. I just do stuff. And there are times when I consider that maybe I should hire someone to do marketing or social media or whatever, just to keep people aware that I'm doing stuff.
Yeah, definitely,
the
man.
Twitter algorithms and all of that have been shadow banning and keeping me, I guess, in the more obscure area. Right now, I'm seeing a resurgence with Nostr, with content that gets more exposure, basically, just because there are no algorithms to suppress it.
Yeah.
Plus, I also tend to get into fights with people on Twitter sometimes, and that, I guess, affects the amount of success that my content has. But honestly, there's a clear distinction between my tendency to fight with people online and the content that I produce. I mean, if you read my content, I promise you that it's so much better than the shit posting.
All the heroes out there who's watching, there you go. Help promote Vlad's stuff and get him out there, because he's obviously doing amazing stuff. Like look how much content you have there. I think that's awesome.
I spend most of my waking hours working on Bitcoin projects of sorts. It's the best kind of feedback when I get it in person at some conference. Last year it was just incredible. It was like I felt like not necessarily a rock star, but maybe a band member who released an album and goes on tour, and people give their feedback in person. I managed to give a magazine to Adam Back. I managed to give a magazine to Peter Willie. I gave one to Nick Sabo, but not in person. I had to ask someone to hand it to him. And it felt really cool just being able to show my heroes that I do stuff and that I've learned a lot from them, and I've grown to the point that I can produce something that they can also enjoy, because I spent my first years in Bitcoin just reading a lot and also writing, because I think writing is a great way for yourself to learn.
Yeah.
You start with the idea that you know everything about one topic and you can write an article. And as you go down and you start finding sources and you figure out, okay, I'm not the first one who's going to approach this topic. And there are others who did it differently before me. So how can I spin this? How can I create something original out of it? And that's what keeps me going, I guess. I mean, of course, I do the podcast. I love interviewing people and promoting new projects, but also find enjoyment in writing. Right now, the third magazine that I'm going to release is called Breaking FUD. And it's like, I think the concept initially was to take the most popular FUD about Bitcoin and debunk it. But then ChatGPT came along, GPT, not GBT, ChatGPT. And I asked ChatGPT the top 10 most common threats to Bitcoin, and I was presented a list. And I think this is more interesting because basically ChatGPT aggregates some of the most popular opinions on topics.
True.
And I'm going to basically have a magazine that's man versus AI going to battle to
I like that.
basically debunk his arguments.
So it's going to be in your new magazine, is it?
Yeah, I think I wrote about 30%. I'm a bit behind schedule.
Yeah.
It's my birthday in 5 days from now. So usually I use birthdays as deadlines. I tell myself, okay, by the time I have my next birthday, I really want to finish this project.
Yeah.
And I haven't finished the magazine by my birthday, which is a bit disappointing to me, but at least I know what I want to do. And also, while working on this, I've learned what I want to do next after this one. Which I think is great because I'm not running out of inspiration for stuff. I don't feel like I'm hitting some sort of plateau.
Well, your magazines look like they're thick boys, so I encourage everyone to go and look out for it.
That's another issue that I'm trying to address, the amount of content, because it cost me about $20 on average to print one copy last year.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to maybe make it smaller and more focused.
You can always push
on
things
topic.
onto the next edition too,
Because it's an open source publication, right? So everyone can print it, can modify it, can sell it, or whatever. It's published under the Creative Commons license. And it's also translated in French and Spanish by guys who liked the project. So I'm trying to also make it accessible for people who need this kind of content to print. I think last year I shot myself in the foot with too many pages, too many articles. I mean, it's really cool when you offer all of this content, but you have to find a middle ground between these and be able to incentivize people to print their own magazines, because right now I think it's a bit discouraging when they realize the cost of the operation.
It's all overwhelming, isn't it? Especially when you're dealing with the international audience where you have to ship as well.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. Right now the ladies from the post office, they know me by my first name.
So you send them individually?
Yeah, I sent them, I signed them, I numbered them.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome.
I tried to create collectibles, not just... Obviously, the ones that are open source, anyone can print them. But the ones that I sent myself, I tried to make them special to incentivize people to... Okay, it's not a good idea because ideally knowledge should be passed on from one person to the other. And basically, I've created hoarders who hope that they're gonna sell their magazines for a lot of money in a few years.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's essential to start as a store of value and then become a medium of exchange.
Oh, nice. The Bitcoin way.
Bitcoin adoption. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet,
man.
You
need like a core audience that really wants to have the next copy of it and have the entire collection. And after that, hopefully the project will grow by word of mouth. They're gonna talk about it. But Then again, something I realized is that the English audiences are spoiled with too much content,
Yeah.
while the French ones, the Spanish ones, they appreciate it so much more because
Yep.
there's a smaller amount of content out there. So they appreciate whatever comes their way. Whereas in the case of English audiences, they're like, another magazine. I mean, there's Bitcoin Magazine, there's Citadel 21, there
So
are all of
true.
these other publications. So there's nothing special. Also, the Germans have started their own. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Eins, Weins, Zang, whatever, which
Yeah.
means 21.
That's awesome. I mean, like, you can think of it like, yeah, Africa, everywhere can just get it translated. And yeah, that's just such a cool idea. Decentralized media.
Yeah, it was also strategic because Spanish, I mean, it was used not in Spain, but in El Salvador and in Argentina.
Yeah.
And those two countries need Bitcoin education. El Salvador because
True.
they made this bold move with the legal tender law, and Argentina because they have this huge inflation rate. And I had, I think, 200 magazines in Argentina at La BitConf in November 2022. And then a week later, I had about 150, I think, in El Salvador. And I lost a lot of money with those. I'm not even sure how many people got the magazines because the organizers did not tell me too much. And I was supposed to go there, and that's my fault. I was supposed to be there, but I got sick and couldn't travel. So
And that's
I
also a
had to
big
trust
cost too, you know, going all the way there.
Yeah.
That's the
It
thing.
is.
That's what I worry
But-
about too. You know, when you're producing something for international audiences, it's you've got so many costs, and then you've got, you know, distribution costs, and then you've got to bring everything here.
I have no reason to complain. I have been invited to speak at conferences here in Europe, and it was because of the magazine.
Oh, yep.
And the way that I see it, okay, maybe that my podcast will never be like Stephan Livera's or Peter McCormack's in terms of audience. Mine, I think, is more intermediate level, so it's not really for newbies. Even though I think newbies can understand some stuff, the questions that I ask and the kind of guests that I have, our conversation tends to be more technical and gets technical very fast because I think the podcast is like my personal evolution in Bitcoin. It's not something static like Peter McCormack. I think Peter McCormack is like an episode of Rick and Morty, you know?
Yep.
Not in terms of what happens, but it starts from the exact same point. Every episode is like it forgot what happened before. There's no learning curve. It's like a complete cleaning or erasure of what happened before. In my case, it's like a natural evolution. I learn from every episode and then I interview someone else and I use the information that I learned from a previous episode to ask different questions to the new guest. Stuff like that. So I guess as I got more advanced about Bitcoin, my audience also narrowed down a bit. It was easier for me to find listeners in the beginning.
Yeah.
But right now, either the people who can listen and understand, they know this already, so they don't need to listen to a podcast. And the ones that do listen to the podcast, they're mostly OGs. And it's very hard to find sponsors that like this type of audience because most sponsors just want the newbies. They want to sell, for example, hardware wallets, and OGs already have them. They don't care much about buying new devices.
Yep.
So
True.
it's tough, but I figured out that with the magazine, basically I can have a situation like in the case of Apple in the 90s. Apple computers used to be very nerdy. And in the early 2000s, they released the iPod, iPod, not the iPad, the iPod, the MP3 player.
I remember that.
And that was the catalyst. It was like a third-party product, not necessarily related to the computer part, but it integrated you to make you part of the ecosystem. And that's the way that I regard the magazine right now, because it's something that's more popular than the podcast as a product. And people who get the magazine also find out about the podcast and might listen to some episodes. So I see it as a symbiosis. Basically, instead of buying or hiring someone to do marketing for me, I do this, and I consider this to be my marketing budget. And it's open source, by the way. You can read it digitally, you can print it, you can modify it, you can sell it. I don't care. Just spread the knowledge.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, good luck with all that stuff. That's awesome. It's such a new concept for me, like that decentralized. If someone else can print it is really interesting. Now, I just want to change gears a little bit. I just wanted to ask about yourself in terms of your hero journey into Bitcoin, your beginning. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I think it was a rocky road. I didn't get into shitcoins at first. I was Bitcoin only because there wasn't necessarily anything out there. I mean,
what year did you get into Bitcoin?
It's a long story. So if your question concerns when I first bought Bitcoin, then that's early 2017. If your question is about when I found out about it and started reading and all that stuff, it was 2013, actually.
Oh, wow.
I was 21 years old and I read about it and I thought it was a stupid idea. And then I found out about it once again, and it was, I think, when it hit $1,000. And once again, I realized, okay, why do I need this? I have a bank account. This is for third world countries, right? Because that's the narrative of Bitcoin, integrating the entire world, banking the unbanked, joining the global financial system. I was like, I'm already part of that. Why do I need Bitcoin? And then in 2015, I had a scholarship in Paris, and one of my professors who was doing a class in innovation and advocacy basically handed me an assignment to do a presentation in front of the class about Bitcoin. And that was 2015. During the bear market, I could get a Bitcoin for $250. And that presentation was handed to me in April or May or something, 2015. And I did not buy Bitcoin. I treated the project as just another homework, just another presentation. You take this project, you learn about it, you do a presentation in front of the class, and you forget about it. Except that I was tempted to buy, but I did not know that I could buy a fraction. So that was my biggest mistake. Even though I learned about the blockchain and whatever for the presentation, I did not really understand how the divisions and units work.
Yep. And
also, I was paying $500 for the rent, and basically that was $250 was 2 weeks worth of rent or 1 month worth of food for me. And I was just a broke student. I was in 2015, 23 years old.
Wow.
I did not have a job. I did not have any income. I just had money from my parents to pay for groceries and the scholarship to pay for my rent. And that was it. But I'm sorry, because I spent a lot of money on stupid stuff and I could have bought like half a Bitcoin or whatever by saving on something. But,
we all think
I guess if I bought it at the time, I wouldn't have held it.
Yeah.
So I would have been tempted to just sell it for a $10 profit and be happy about it.
Yeah.
Because I had no proper understanding of what this is. But I kept following it, and I was tempted to buy it in late 2015. But then I wrote an article. At the time, I was a lot into reading Rolling Stone, and my dream was to grow up and write for Rolling Stone. Now I'm doing a magazine, I guess. I started my own instead of going to work for Rolling Stone, which I guess is the Bitcoin way to start your own project. But I read in Rolling Stone an article about the trial and conviction of Ross Ulbricht, and that turned me off a bit from Bitcoin. I was like, yeah, this guy did this and that, and the image of Bitcoin is associated with dark markets and drugs, and I don't really want this. Like, is this really the only use case? I was not aware of much stuff going on, so once again, I did not buy. In early 2016, I was like, let me give this a chance. Why don't I buy some Bitcoin? This was in January. And I read an article on Wall Street Journal, which presented Mike Hearn's rage quit moment. Mike Hearn at the time was a Bitcoin Core developer. He had created Bitcoin Classic, I think, which was a fork with big blocks. He was not able to persuade the others into following it. So he rage quit. He said, yeah, Bitcoin is a failed project. He went to the media and made this statement. And I read that, and I was not aware of Mike Hearn's intentions and, background and why he said this in the first place. And I believed it. And I was like, okay, so Wall Street Journal tells me that Bitcoin is dead. And this developer attests that it's dead. So maybe it was a good idea that I did not buy. Ironically, at the time in 2016, the price was like $500. So it was twice as much as 6 months ago when I first wanted to buy. So there was like a bit of disconnect in my mind. Like, why is this happening? Like, you see these articles in the media and it seems like it's all over. But at the same time, why is the price going up? Like, does the market know something that these people in the media don't?
Yes.
And once Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high of $1,000, that's when I realized, okay, so mainstream media is bullshit. I have been relying on it for too long. And this story will actually be part of, shameless plug, but I'm going to include it in the foreword of my upcoming magazine because I consider FUD to be the initiation stage. It consists of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. At first you fear it, and that was my reaction when I read about Silk Road and that stuff. I never did any drugs, so it was not something I would be interested in. Then it was uncertainty when I was not sure if this is for me. And then it was doubt because I was not sure if it's going to succeed as a project, if it's a good investment or whatever.
Yeah.
And once I had the doubt removed, it was only after that point that I said to myself, okay, let me buy Bitcoin. At the same time, 2017 was a ripe year for shitcoins, and I was not aware that they're shitcoins, and I believed too much into the marketing. So the Bitcoin that I bought in 2017 did not end up being held in cold storage or whatever. I exchanged it for ICO tokens for all sorts of shitcoins.
Yeah, we all
and I
did
lost
that.
most of it. But I did not start seriously until I realized that none of this makes sense. And that was when I decided, okay, let me take this slow. Let me figure this out. Why does any of this exist? So that's when I got into cypherpunk literature. I read a lot of Nick Szabo. I think that this new generation of Bitcoiners doesn't read enough Nick Szabo. And his blog is called The Unenumerated, Unenumeраted. And it's a super great source for all sorts of stuff, from anthropology to history to economics, computer science. There's so much to be learned from that one. And it gives you a very good understanding of why Bitcoin exists and what kind of problem it solves. Because initially, of course, everyone gets in for the speculation part, gets in for making more US dollars or whatever fiat currency they're using. But then you have to go through this process of rationalization to figure out, okay, it did not go as planned. Maybe that my investment is underwater right now. Now what? Am I gonna sell it? Am I gonna just wait for it to go back and sell it and get out? Or am I gonna try to learn a bit more about this? And I ended up getting jobs in the space after I started reading. So I think it was the perfect time.
Sounds like it. That's awesome, man. It's good. It's good. I'm surprised you got in so early, and it took you a while, but it looks like your guns blazing now in the Bitcoin space, which is incredible. So you've finally made it.
It's funny that you call it so early because I always felt like I was too late. And
everyone does.
When I started my show, I was doing interviews with the class of 2013 mostly. So guys who got in 4 years before I did. And I thought they were super geniuses and they were, special in some way. But then I realized that the class of 2017 was actually a lot more creative and worked on more education projects and built really cool businesses and projects like Mempool Space. It was built by Simon, who got into Bitcoin in 2017. And products like, I'm not sure if you're aware of Relay, which is a business from Europe in Switzerland. Anyway, it's this very nice exchange which doesn't require much quick KYC. and most of their founders are 2017 Bitcoiners. It's just really cool to see that our class has created so much good stuff. And it just makes you wonder, okay, so you guys, the ones that came after us and have a different perspective, and I don't know, maybe you have different skill sets and have a different understanding of the world around you. You're also gonna build something. You're also gonna build shows, you're gonna write books, you're gonna write magazines, you're gonna do explanatory videos. I think there's a guy, his name is Pleb Music, but his real name is Max something. I'm not sure about his last name. But I very much enjoy the kind of videos that he does. And I'm also a fan of your idea to create a Game Boy game.
Well, thanks, man.
That's super original. And if I can buy that when it's done, I would very much enjoy doing that. Like
That'd be awesome,
a real
man.
cartridge that I can insert into a Game Boy and play a new game.
That's the great thing. Like everyone brings their own take into Bitcoin, and I try to think of it like it's a new beginning. We're starting from scratch, and I think that's why I started up with the Game Boy. I thought that was sort of the beginning of gaming for me. So, but speaking of gaming, let's get into this game.
For the audience's delight, this was not, I guess, the first choice.
That's right. We were going to play Mario
We
Kart.
wanted to play Mario Kart, but the controls were delayed, and I guess the steering was a bit like sliding on ice, and I felt like it was not proper because I would look like an idiot playing it, and I don't want to look like an idiot playing it. I want to look cool.
I understand.
And if I want to look cool, I want to play beat 'em up.
Yeah, we're pretty far away. I'm in Australia. You're in Romania, so the lag was terrible. So let's play.
Do you have any stories or memories of this game?
I actually never played the Super Nintendo version of this game. I played the arcade version of this game where you could play up to 4 players, and it was in my local bowling ball alley place. So now you can.
I'm gonna go with Raph.
Oh, that's cool.
He was always my favorite.
Oh, I should have chose the orange one then. What's his name? I forget the names now.
Michelangelo.
I got Leonardo. I remember Leonardo.
Renaissance painters. Leonardo from Leonardo da Vinci. Raphael from the painter and sculptor.
Yeah.
Michelangelo, like Da Vinci. And Donatello, which is also one of the Renaissance painters. Okay, so what's the
all artists, see? There's a lot of artists in this Bitcoin space, which is great.
So this is the jump button, and this is the hit button. Okay, I'm good.
Cool. So what was your introduction to this game? So did you have this game yourself, did you?
No, I did not have a Super Nintendo when I was a kid. In Romania, it was a bit tough to find officially distributed video games, and they were super expensive, as we had about 50 years of communism since World War II and all the way up to 1989.
Yeah.
So it was pretty tough. I was born in 92, so I did not catch the communist era, but I did catch the era of hyperinflation. I guess that can also be
so you've been all through that already.
I mean, I was a kid, so I did not feel
but
like...
You've obviously felt or spoken to your parents afterwards about it, that sort of time?
Oh, I got smashed.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, they told me a lot of stuff. They even showed me how they used to get paid twice a month because the inflation was so high that it made no sense to wait an entire month for their wage. And how their salaries would increase. They actually took advantage, unknowingly, of the inflation because they took a 10-year loan to buy their house. And they were able to pay it back in 1 or 2 years because of the inflation.
Oh, wow.
Because the amount was fixed in the national currency, right?
Yeah.
So I guess they got lucky. Had they not taken a loan around the time, they wouldn't have been able to own a house later. Or at least not as easily.
Yeah.
So I guess every type of situation, as evil as it might sound, it has its opportunities. And my parents did not even know what they were doing because nobody had this type of financial education during the communist era. But it was kind of a cool idea to own your own house, right? So they did it after the wedding. But their story with the wedding is that they basically had their wedding in November of 1989, and a month later the communist regime fell. And weddings are like fundraisers where the young couple raises money to start a new life. And they raised money and wanted to buy a new car. But during communism, if you wanted to buy a new car, you had to deposit the entire amount in the state's bank account and then wait for 2 years for the car to be delivered. Yeah, and they did that, and by the time they got their money back after the revolution, it was worthless. And with the money that they could have bought a car 2 years prior, they ended up buying one couch for the bedroom.
Oh.
So it was rough. I have all of these stories from the history of my parents, grandparents. I mean, before the communist era, they had to seize all the private property and turn it into state property. So my grandparents were small business owners, and they had a handful of employees, not too many. But still they were declared enemies of the state, and their children had to deal with discrimination from the system.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted to thrive in communism, you needed to have what they called healthy origins. And healthy origins meant that you were from the working class or from the farmers. If your ancestors were into businesses of any sorts, like capitalism, that was evil, and they did not want you. They did not even let your children go to school.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Which is a paradox, right? Because communists want everyone to get basic education and stuff.
Yeah.
But my grandfather was not allowed to finish high school until a few years later, when the regime became more relaxed.
Oh. Got him.
And they basically realized that they need more people to go to school and fulfill positions. He was a school teacher.
Yeah.
So they needed to use him. Anyway, the controls are still a bit delayed, but it's not as bad as we first experienced.
Yeah. That's the only thing
I
about...
gotta say about Turtles in Time that it's widely considered to be one of the best beat-em-ups in history, along with Streets of Rage.
Totally agree.
What's the other one?
Final Fight?
Yeah.
That's right.
I remember all
also,
of them.
have you ever played Knights of the Round? That was a good arcade one. And you level up your armor and sword as you progress and attack? As you get points?
No, I don't think so.
So what do you remember of Teenage Mutant Turtles? Did you used to watch it on TV?
Yeah, when I was a kid. So I had shoes with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles logo. I had like a small jacket for winter. I had all the turtles in rubber action figures. I used to basically bath with them. Some people have rubber ducks. I had... Wait, I had a game over screen. I had the turtles.
Oh. You got a game over screen?
Yeah, but I had to use the continues.
Oh, I see.
And I was not aware which key I'm supposed to press. It was enter. So despite having this video game on the Nintendo Switch, we are playing online on this website which is called Cosme. This is emulation. It's not, I guess, the purest form of enjoying the game.
That's right.
But it's the
but
only
neither
one
is
that works,
is the original on the actual Super Nintendo itself is the best, because the Switch is still using emulation. So it is using just a ROM of the game and using an emulator. So it's actually virtually the same. So I always prefer to play it on the original console, but you know, in this case, it's just easier. Can't play it online, you know. Original console.
Did you own an NES as a kid?
Yeah, I have original Nintendo. Yeah, I got heaps of games. Same as Super Nintendo, 64, GameCube, everything. I'm a collector, so I got a bunch of boxed games and also just card-only games.
Yeah, lately I've become a fan of JRPGs. I guess I've always been into RPGs.
Which one what's your favorite ones?
So in 2020 I discovered Final Fantasy X on the Nintendo
Oh, I love that
Switch,
game.
and it captivated me.
Such a good
For
story.
such a long time I was obsessed with the story, with the lore, everything about Spira, because that's the name of the kingdom in which you do that pilgrimage. And it's such a good game. The story, the music, the atmosphere. The only drawback is that it's a bit linear, so you don't have much freedom to explore.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to complain otherwise. I love it. And right now, I played it again recently. And also, right now I'm going through X2, so 10.2.
Oh, I can't stand
the
10.2.
sequel.
It's
Yeah, it's bad.
it's so bad.
What's the worst about it is the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Kind of ruins the original.
Yeah, there was such
But
a
I think
cultural. Yeah.
There's some brilliance in it, in the sense that all evil and the roots of all evils has been abolished, right? It went away. There's no more sin, which was the antagonist.
Yeah.
Or Yu Yevon, spoiler, but I guess... What happened?
I think you press start.
Oh. Shift is start? Okay. Anyway, the story of Final Fantasy II is basically what happens after you remove all the evil. And you have this excess culture. Basically, I think it's a lot like Fiat culture. What's happening in Final Fantasy X-2.
Yeah.
And you have the good times, basically, with people who are excessively...
So basically, they discover Bitcoin at the end of Final Fantasy X, and 10.2 is all about the Bitcoin times. Is that right?
No, not necessarily. I think 10.2 is more like Fiat times. Because they haven't figured out Bitcoin yet. They were able to remove the evil, but at the same time, they're still in a nascent phase where they don't know too much about the world around them.
Very true.
And it seems excessive, it seems flamboyant, it seems like a huge J-pop music video, at least in the beginning, but it gets more depth after the first half. Right now I'm in Act 4, and it's become more serious than the first 30 minutes. It was such a huge turnoff the first moment when I tried it, and I realized that it's not what I expected. And it has nothing to do with the all-female cast and stuff like that. I don't care much. It's just the tone, the atmosphere. Yeah, so right now we are in the Technodrome, and I have this random fact from Europe. It's actually from Germany that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are called the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, because they thought that ninjas are violent and they incite children to fight each other. So they decided, okay, let's call them heroes, because it's more inspiring for children or whatever. And if you look for the original SNES game in Europe, you're gonna see that it's called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, which is kind of strange. I mean, it sucks. It's not ideal. But in the context of this interview, where we are talking about heroes and you are a hero and you work on a video game about heroes, it makes a lot of sense.
It's the perfect game for the first gaming video though, mate. How do you think that Ninja Turtles relates to Bitcoin in terms of how they beat crime and whatnot?
Well, we gotta think about what the Ninja Turtles are, and they're a bunch of freaks. a bunch of strange guys who are fighting for a good cause. And I guess this is what Bitcoiners are. Or at least this is how they're regarded. Plus, there is a degree of anonymity because they wear masks. They still have their own identity, different colors, different personalities, so I guess it's... In the original series, I think they were wearing the same color and they were looking the same, but they had to individualize them because I guess they need to sell toys. But in the Bitcoiner context, I think that the turtles are a good example for seeking justice and looking at the world around you and destroying all the bad robots, all the NPCs, and trying to make the world a fairer place. And having pizza. Bitcoin's about pizza, right? The first ever world transaction.
Hey, have that pizza there. You'll need it.
Something tangible was made with 10,000 Bitcoins for one pizza. No, 2 pizzas. And the turtles have pizza. So I guess the turtles are true Bitcoiners. Because they enjoy eating pizza.
All right, guys, I think that's enough for today. Thank you very much, Vlad, for coming on. It was amazing listening to your story and all the stuff that you're making. Vlad, how can people connect to you?
So I think the best way is to go to btctkvr.com and you're gonna find all the social media links and all the stuff about how you can even send donations to the project if that's what you want for whatever reason. But on Twitter, I'm at btctkvr for the official project, and if you want to see my shit posting, I'm at THEVLADCOSTEA. Basically my full name, but with a D before it. I wish I had the original one with just my full name, but it was taken by someone else, so I had to improvise.
All right, well, thanks.
But now it doesn't matter because we have Nostr.
That's right. So check out, and I'll put in the description the your Nostr address as well, because it is quite long to put on this video and whatnot. So I'll make sure that people can find you there as well.
Cowabunga.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, Heroes, and I'll see you next time. Bye.